is.
Hump day!
Hump day! It's hump day!
Hey, Mike! Mike!
Mike!
That's what day it is!
Hey,
Camo! Guess what day it is?
Hump Day in the voice of Texas, and good morning, one and all. And it is a rather interesting morning. Let me tell you how my day started. Got up and received a text message from the Lieutenant Governor's office saying, Lieutenant Governor would like to come on and talk with you about what happened overnight. And I said, what happened overnight? So I started doing some investigating, and the Austin bomber, about between 2 or 3 o'clock this morning, blew himself up, ladies and gentlemen. And that is how we start off the Chris Salcedo Show today. Welcome to it, everybody. Not much is known, and these days, what authorities and what the news is not telling us, that sends red flags or makes me question why they're not telling us. Let me read Fox News account. Austin serial bombing suspect killed in dramatic confrontation, ID'd as 24-year-old man. And that's it. 24-year-old man. We don't know much about him, just his age. Don't even know what. Now, remember, there was a racial component to this. The initial victims were all of one particular race, leading some to speculate that this guy was a white supremacist of some kind. His age, a bit surprising to me. I thought he might be a little bit older, but well, let me just tell you what I fear. I'm not saying this is the truth. I'll just tell you what I fear. I fear he is former military because of his proficiency with explosives. And I don't know this. I want to stress this. I don't know. This is what these are. With all of the gaps, these are what I fear may come to pass. And I do not want our fine men and women in uniform to be marred in any way by maybe one of their own who went off the rails. The suspected serial bomber who killed 2 people and terrorized Austin for 3 harrowing weeks was killed in a dramatic confrontation with the police overnight Wednesday, according to authorities. Suspect identified by police early Wednesday as a 24-year-old male was killed near the motel he was traced to by authorities using surveillance footage from a Federal Express drop-off store and cell phone triangulation technology, according to the Austin Statesman. The man died fleeing the motel in a car with police hot on his tail. He drove into a ditch, sparking the fatal confrontation. He wanted this to come to a peaceful resolution, or we, said the police. We wanted this to come to a peaceful resolution. However, we were not afforded that opportunity when he started to drive away. Police said the man detonated 2 package bombs as police closed in, firing at him. It was not immediately clear whether he died from the bombs or from the shots fired by police. One police officer was knocked back by the blast, but none was seriously hurt. Manley, this is the police chief, the interim police chief in Austin. Manley said they had zeroed in on this person of interest over the last 24 to 36 hours, tracing him to a hotel near Round Rock where they spotted his vehicle. Suspect is believed to be from the Pflugerville area. And I've never been to that part of Texas. Located near the site of the showdown with cops in Round Rock. That's according to Fox 7 in the area. Last night and early morning, we felt very confident. The suspect in the bombings thought who he was, said Manley. As police took up positions around the motel and waited for tactical units to arrive, the suspect bolted. Police followed the vehicle, and when it went off the road, SWAT teams moved in. Suspect detonated at least 2 of one of the bombs inside the car. Suspect is deceased with significant injuries, Manley said, adding that he has not yet been positively identified by the medical examiner. Okay, he's not been identified by the medical examiner, but they know who he is. Manley also warned that more packages could be out there in circulation. And this is another big worry that I had getting up today, is yes, he's gone, and we can all breathe easy. He's not going to be manufacturing more bombs. But we saw, and I saw this last night, some analysis on Fox, some of the myriad experts that they bring on. They were having a conversation about, well, why is the pace of the bombings? Because late last night, there was, 1, 2, 3, boom, 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 boom. There were bombs going off everywhere, being found everywhere. There was one at a Salvation Army drop-off point, which was not from the bomber. It was old, I think it was World War II munitions that just inadvertently sparked. And I think it was Casey Stiegel who was reporting for Fox saying, good grief, of all times for that to happen now, when nerves are so frayed. At any rate, the speculation was that the bombings were increasing because this guy felt his circle tightening and that the police were closing in. So he made every effort to put as many of those bombs in circulation as he possibly could. Now that he's dead, we don't know how many more are out there. So Donald Trump tweeting, Austin bombing suspect is dead. Great job by law enforcement and all concerned. This is what the president said yesterday about this bomber. I mean, you're going to hear a theme develop here rather quickly.
Bombings in Austin are terrible. Local, state, and federal are working hand in hand to get to the bottom of it. This is obviously a very, very sick individual, or maybe individuals. These are sick people, and we will get to the bottom of it. But these are sick people, and we have to find them as soon as possible. We have to find them really immediately. I will say, working with Texas, working with the local governments has been great. But we have to find this very sick person or people.
Yeah, and you know what? On that last point the president made, people, do we know this guy was alone? Do we know this guy was manufacturing these weapons all by himself? So that begs another question. Is there a fallback? I mean, he seemed to be one step ahead of authorities for 3 weeks. So these are the concerns I have getting up today. And then there's the human reaction. The initial reaction is, oh, thank God he's dead. Thank God he's gone. Thank God he won't be harming more innocent people. And then there's the part of me that says, I wanted this guy to suffer a little bit. I wanted this guy to be brought to justice. I wanted this guy to serve time. I wanted this guy to answer for what he did. Now, judgment is not mine. I understand that now he's facing the ultimate judgment. But there's still that human component that demands inside of me anyway, that demands justice. So, and there are some questions that, why all this? Why'd you do it? 281-558-5738, 281-558-KSCV. Dan Patrick, the Lieutenant Governor of the great state of Texas, will be coming on top of this next hour. So I hope you guys stay tuned. He'll give us the very latest information his office is getting. He has been up since dark 30 is my understanding, since this all went down. And the president tweeting it at very early this morning as well. So I imagine all of the officials concerned, governor, lieutenant governor, and those in law enforcement on the federal level, pulling an all-nighter on this one, ladies and gentlemen, and a lot of tired eyes. But there is a conclusion to all of this. Maybe not the one we all wanted, but definitely a conclusion. Former CIA operative Buck Sexton was on Fox last night, and what he's going to be bringing up, this is before they had caught the individual, but what he's going to be bringing up is part of the unanswered questions that I have. The psychological profile, what was he about, and studying his tactics and why he was doing what he was doing.
What it suggests is that the person, assuming it's one person, as you mentioned, it may be a group, is varying tactics, techniques, and procedures here to make it harder to track them down and also to increase the fear here. I mean, this is about a campaign of terror of one kind or another. It might be a madman who has a personal grudge against the state, against the government, who knows. Could also be somebody who has a more specific political manifesto. By changing things up, Tucker, it makes it harder for law enforcement to track a pattern. And so that seems to be part of the additional planning here, which, by the way, just the increase in the sophistication of the devices makes it seem like it's likely we're dealing with somebody who has really planned this out, who may have prior experience with explosives,
yes,
and is going to continue this for the foreseeable future until he's caught.
And may have made these bombs well ahead of time and then planned to roll them out. Again, we don't know whether he was alone. I'm sure police are searching his known residence, trying to find some reason why he did what he did. All we know at this point, ladies and gentlemen, is a 24-year-old man. That's it. That's all we know. So hopefully the lieutenant governor can shed more light on this for you and for me. When we come back, I'm going to get your thoughts. I imagine your brain is racing this morning every bit as much as mine is. What do you want to know? I got the lieutenant governor coming on, so if you have questions you want me to ask him, do me a favor. Call in and fire off your question to me, and I'll pass it on to him. 281-558-5738, 281-558-KSEV. I'll be right back. Without further ado, let's bring on our guest, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, who has been up since very early this morning, since the breaking of this story. Lieutenant Governor, welcome back to the Chris Salcedo Show.
Good morning, Chris. This is a great day for Texas that we got this lowlife, no good, I'll let you fill in the blank, person who was willing to, just destroy innocent lives, men, women, children, if need be. Fortunately, no children were hurt in these 4 bombings, but we lost a young man who was on his way to UT with a promising music career ahead of him, and another gentleman and others wounded. I got the call this morning about 2:50 that this bomber had blown himself up on the side of the road between Austin and Round Rock, up near Round Rock, for people who know that area. It's north of Austin. And actually, and I'm not going to go, Chris, into what the police tools were, because I'm always uneasy when I see people on television or on the radio talking about how someone was, if someone else wants to do it, that's up to them, how someone was captured, because we don't want to let bad people know the tools that law enforcement uses all the time. But an incredible effort, Chris, an incredible effort by 500-plus ATF, FBI, feds, state police, 100-plus Texas Rangers, and then the Austin Police Department and their interim chief, Brian Manley, did an incredible job of police work, 19 days, that it took to get this person. This was a person, Chris, who, when I got the call last evening, I got a call early in the evening last night from law enforcement that they felt they were zeroing in on the person. This was a person, one of several they were had of interest, and were doing great detective work on. And then once this person, whose name has not been disclosed yet, he mailed the bomb to FedEx from a center in a suburb of Austin yesterday, and they, even though he was in a disguise, they picked it up on video and the description of his vehicle. They later discovered he had 2 different vehicles, so they quickly had his home under surveillance and looking for him at the same time. And through great police work, they found him in a motel late last night after, I'm not exactly sure when they found him, but again, he blew himself up somewhere, between 2 and 3 a.m. I got the call about 2:50.
Gotcha.
But he left in his automobile or his SUV, I think it was, and then blew himself up. A SWAT was approaching the vehicle. Brave men and women on all these police departments. Chris, it's one thing to go after any criminal. You have to be brave to be in law enforcement to do that. But when you're going after a bomber, you are really at great risk. They can throw a bomb at you, a pipe bomb. They can have bombs. They can have areas booby-trapped. SWAT went up to approach the vehicle, and the bomb went off. One SWAT officer was blown back. I don't know the extent of the injuries. I don't think there's. I don't want to say I don't think. I don't know. but I'm hopeful they're not serious injuries. One shot was fired by SWAT, but these are just incredible people that we have in Texas and the federal government. So that's what happened. I do want the people who have friends in Austin, if you have family and friends in Austin, let them know. We don't know if there are other bombs that he planted somewhere before he was caught and blew himself up last night. We don't know if he mailed other packages. So people, particularly in the Austin area, but anywhere, just need to be very careful until the police finally believe that there are no other bombs. So be vigilant. Don't know where he could have mailed a package. Don't know where he could have left a package. So be vigilant and be smart, and we'll know more as the day goes by.
Governor, first off, Fox News is reporting that that none of the officers were seriously hurt. So you probably should know that. Number two, do we know whether this guy was working alone? Because we've been saying for a long time over these 19 days, what suspect or suspects? Do we know if he had any accomplices?
We don't know yet. He lived in a busy area near Austin, so it was not like he was out in the middle of the country somewhere living alone. So did other people know? Did other people suspect? We just don't have those answers yet. We don't have the motive, as Chief Manley said a little bit ago. It's just too early for the motive. Here's the first piece of important news: he's dead.
Yeah.
That's the most important piece of news. And if he has not, put bombs in other places, which is possible because there was some time that, before they put him under surveillance, we don't know all of his activities late yesterday and early in the evening. So we want to be very careful about that. But we know he's dead, and this bomber, his work is over. And hopefully no other bombs were put anywhere last night. But all those other issues, there's a lot more information, but at the right time it will come out because they have been, again, he was one of several people that they were looking at. And then when he changed his tactics yesterday and mailed a bomb, and, there are lots of video cameras everywhere you go. And, the other bombings, he had gone in areas that weren't in neighborhoods and where there weren't video cameras and on these homes, maybe at night, hard to be seen. But he put himself right in the spotlight yesterday to go with the other information they had, and they were on incredible police work. Incredible.
Is there all they've released is that he's a 24-year-old male? Is there any other part of his biography that you're allowed to talk about at this point?
No.
Okay, that's what I figured.
Okay.
Yeah, that's. Okay. I understand exactly what you're saying, and it's just and so the speculation is going to be rampant until this stuff comes out in due time.
Sure, and everybody wants instant answers, and we let the law enforcement do their work. It's why last night I'm here in Austin, and I was out at a restaurant last night when that Goodwill bomb went off, and because I knew what had been told earlier, I didn't believe that was the bomber because they were watching very closely, and at that point, I'm not sure if he was under surveillance or not, but that was just a flare that went off, so it was not connected.
I know. I watched Casey Stegall on Fox last night, and he was saying, of all times, for some fluke like this to happen, the 19 days
it was a fluke.
Exactly. He just said he was sitting there and he was literally shaking his head on the air, throwing up his arms, saying, "Can you believe it that it would happen at this time?"
Yeah, well. Yeah, and I didn't at first know it was a flare. It took a bit of time to get that information. But first, when I heard about the bombing, because those of us who were at the dinner got a text, and I thought, I hope it's not a second bomber. So it wasn't a second bomber, and it was just a flare.
Got it.
Someone could have been hurt, but a flare going off in your hand can do some damage, but it wasn't a bomb. So,
sure.
So again, the key here is this guy is dead. They will. I think in not too long of a period of time, they have to notify the next of kin. They have to. He was he blew himself up in a car, as the police chief said. Body is badly damaged, so they got to make sure all the identifications are right and match everything. That will not take too long, and we'll know a lot more. I think some of the media already knows more information, but so far they have been respectful and have not released that information, and I'm not about to do that here.
Very good.
It's great police work, Chris, and glad this chapter, again, we want to be very vigilant for several days now to make sure he's not planting any other bombs, and so people, particularly in the Austin area, but anywhere, he could have mailed things to any place, just need to be careful. So if there are any packages on your front doorstep that don't look right, don't handle, but great police work. So thank you, Chris.
Hey, thank you. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, anything else breaks, please make sure and let us know. We appreciate it. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick of the great state of Texas, folks, here on the Chris Salcedo Show with all the information we can give out at this point. 281-558-5738, 281-558-KSEV. That is our telephone number. Okay, you guys have heard the gist of the big news of the day. I want to get your thoughts coming in on the next part of the Chris Salcedo Show after a news update here at the top of the hour. And there's some other stuff to get into as well on the Voice of Texas.
Listen, guess what today is?
It's hump day.
Woo-hoo!
Hump Day on the Voice of Texas, AM 700 KSEV. Glad you've tuned in, everybody. Well, a bit of a sigh of relief for everybody here in the state of Texas as the Austin bomber blows himself up. That's about all we know, folks. We know the circumstances of his death. He blew himself up after authorities were closing in on him, but that's about all we know. We know he's 24 years old. We know he's a man, and that's it. And according to the Lieutenant Governor who was just joining us moments ago, there's a reason why they're withholding this information. Notification of next of kin and other reasons. Let's get out to your phone calls. Your reaction right now to what you guys are hearing. Andy, glad you made it. Welcome to the Chris Salcedo Show.
Good morning, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much, lady. What's going on with you?
Well, I just wanted to comment that the law enforcement in Texas, is the greatest state in the United States, and we really deliver over here. It's a no nonsense. And I really want to say, to law enforcement, and y'all are the best.
Well, they did. Look, this was a very stress-filled and increasingly stress-filled 3 weeks for everybody in Texas, and the pressure was on them to perform. And looks like this guy he was trying to vary up his tactics as to not get caught, and maybe that's what led to his undoing, because it allowed police to exploit some of those changes in tactics.
Yeah, I'm curious if this guy was one of those Antifa brainwashed Democrats,
Yeah, you know what? I was talking about that, Andy, with Mrs. Salcedo this morning about how this once we know the identity of this guy and what his beef was, it's going to get very political very fast, and it could go. And remember, it can go either way. What if this guy is pictured with a "Make America Great" hat on again, or maybe what if he's former military? Then it's going to open up the door for the left to come in and say, "Oh, this is what Trump supporters do; they blow people up," or "This is what the military is all about, blowing up citizens." So, I mean, that sword can cut both ways.
Yeah, it can, but historically, all these assailants, like the guy that shot the members of Congress that were Republicans, I mean, they tend the track record is that they're Democrats,
Well, yeah, or liberal extremists or people that don't like democracy, that kind of thing. No, a point is well taken, but let's. I'm going to sit here and I think that the Lieutenant Governor and other law enforcement officials are reserving judgment. They're just going to try to get out there and meet with the facts. There was another shooting yesterday too that I want to get into in Maryland, but yeah, I mean, in this hyper partisan atmosphere, and when there are so many people dedicated to dividing this country, we're at least trying to keep it down middle of the road on reporting on this. But as I said, Andy, that yesterday another shooting in Maryland, and the left wing was on it like white on rice. So we're going to respond.
Yeah, and they ignored the shooting where who was it? He had a Good Samaritan or was it a security?
Yeah, that was Maryland. That was Maryland. It was a good guy with a gun.
Yeah, but they, I don't even watch CNN anymore. I just don't watch the news. I just listen to your radio show because it's so biased, and I'm just really concerned that we're gonna lose out in November, because of the propaganda machine.
Well, no, what the good news is, nobody else is watching CNN either, Andy. I mean, I think and it's a bit of a throwaway line and a bit of a chuckle line, but also consider this: there was a story out. Breitbart, I think, wrote this up about the firings across media, newspapers, and CNN is laying off people. Yeah, the reason why they're firing is because their ratings are so low. People who are fair-minded and want fair news, no, you don't go to CNN if you want fair news. You don't go to MSNBC if you want fair news. And
you don't go to any network.
Well, I was just going to say ABC, NBC, CBS. They can't claim it either. And it's, the American people are saying, I might pull a little here, pull a little there, and try to piece together what the truth is. But too many people with too many agendas. You know what I mean? Instead of the truth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All I want to say to all the conservatives, man, it doesn't matter how you're feeling. You got to get out and vote.
Yep.
I
agree. And there was going to be a point this morning before the bomber blew himself up, Andy. We may get into it tomorrow, where we'll talk about. As a matter of fact, I got a guest coming up here at the bottom of the hour who's a former Republican who is talking about fixing politics. We'll ask him about it, but I mean, it's rather dysfunctional. We can't be Americans anymore because the Democrats lost an election. So I appreciate the call, Andy. Thank you very much. All right. Let's get out to Ray. Hello, Ray. Welcome to the Chris Salcedo Show. What say you?
Oh, good morning, Chris. Hey, I just, if somebody hasn't said this already, I'd be surprised, but I haven't been listening very long. This bombing that's been going on in Austin should prove once again that it's not the gun, it's not the hatchet, it's not the knife, it's not the package that kills people. You can ban them all you want, you can restrict them or control them all you want. If a person wants to do harm to others, he's going to find some way.
You know what, Andy? Let me play a little tongue-in-cheek exercise with you here, because some liberal showed up on my Twitter account when the bombings first started happening and said, "What's your solution, Salcedo? Do you want to have everybody have a bomb so we can defend ourselves?" And I said, "Oh, you know what? You're right. We should pass a law making bombs illegal." Oh, wait a minute. There already is a law making bombs illegal. How's that working out for you? He shut up.
Yeah, it should. I don't hear anybody saying anything about common sense package control because it's just as stupid as common sense. Gun control, or even common sense teacher control.
Oh, yes. Well, yes. Or common sense FedEx control, or common sense mail delivery control. Thank you very much for the call. I really appreciate it, Ray. He's absolutely right. I might as well get into this now because it's going to come up at some point today anyway. Yesterday there was a shooting in a Maryland school. And there's a couple of angles here that I want you guys to all consider. First off, it was a school resource officer who confronted the shooter. He's dead now. A 16-year-old kid who was, for all indications, was firing at his fellow students because of a romantic failure with a young lady. And it was a school resource officer, a trained man with a gun, who stopped the carnage. Nobody else but the shooter died. Now, one of them is in very serious condition, the girl, I believe. But this kid was 17 years old, not 16. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? He was in violation of the law. Let me read from the Daily Caller. The student who shot 2 people at a Maryland school on Tuesday was illegally prohibited from owning that gun or possessing that firearm that he used. All the idiots who are out there, "Oh, we need to get rid of assault weapons," which don't exist, by the way. That's fake. It's phony. There's no such thing as an assault weapon that is available to the American public. The shooter was 17 years old. He was in violation of Maryland's law because it is illegal for a 17-year-old to possess the 9mm Glock that he used to try to kill his fellow students. He violated the law that all the libs out there said, oh, if you just pass these common sense gun restrictions, we'll all be safe. How'd that work out? How did that work out? Did that keep those kids in the Maryland schools safe? No, it didn't. What did? My suggestion. Conservatives' suggestion. What saved kids' lives? A good guy with a gun. Hardening those targets. That's what saved lives. So you libs out there, you Democrats out there, I don't want to hear any more of your gun restrictions. Mr. David Hogg, take your gun restrictions and your bashing of the NRA and shove it up your nose. Because I want to go with what keeps our kids safe, what keeps them alive. And all of your offerings don't do that. Let's stop failing to protect our kids, because right now, you libs, you're doing it wrong. Back in a minute. The Chris Salcedo Show on the Voice of Texas. Welcome back, everybody, to the Chris Salcedo Show. We're going to rerun the interview with Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick coming up a little later on the show. So if you missed the Lieutenant Governor giving us the latest on the Austin bombings, make sure you stay tuned. We'll have that interview replayed for you guys so you guys can hear it, but most likely at the top of the 8 o'clock hour. Coming up here at the bottom of the hour, we'll talk to a former Republican. Among other things, this Republican believes that climate change is man-caused and that climate change is demands our attention and wants to propose free market capitalism to solve it. He's been on this program before. He's going to be in Texas talking to oil executives, so we wanted to get him back on. He's also started another initiative, Fixing Politics, and I think fixing politics is worthwhile. Because, as we mentioned yesterday, the Republicans are teaming up with the Democrats to spend us into oblivion. A $1.2 trillion omnibus. Yes, it's the omnibus. It's really, folks, the omnibus is throwing us all under the bus. This is an example of government spending. Well, Mr. Salcedo, you don't understand. We've got mandatory spending. What the hell is that? What is mandatory spending? Can somebody explain that to me? Did not Congress put in the mandatory spending? Yes. That means Congress can stop the mandatory spending. Or am I to understand that a future Congress is bound by a past Congress? Is that what I'm... No. That's not the rule. The rule is a current Congress cannot be bound by a former Congress. Well, we can't find the political will. Well, you can't find... Yeah, that I can agree with. Republicans are weak. Now, somehow Democrats always seem to unify behind raising taxes. They always seem to find a lot of spirit to do that, to say that it is their job to spend our money and it's our job to have our families do with less so they can have more control over our money and resources in Washington to buy their political offices. And you know what? There are a lot of Republicans who are starting to adopt that mantra as well. This omnibus bill, $1.2 billion. Notice I didn't say budget. Mitch McConnell, this omnibus budget resolution, blah, blah, blah. That is to cover the fact that this man didn't do his job. Mitch McConnell, for whatever reason, I mean, on a thin majority, uncooperative Democrats, for whatever reason. Mitch McConnell didn't get out in front of the American people and say, hey, look, I want to pass a budget. I've got 12 appropriations bills over here. The House did their work. However, Chuck Schumer's lazy. Dick Durbin is lazy. These men are lazy. They don't want to work for a living. House did its job. Why can't we do our job over here in the Senate? Did you guys see Mitch McConnell do that? Oh, no. That's the decorum of the Senate. And these are my good friends. And screw you, Mitch McConnell. Because your desire to be friends with Chuck Schumer is costing my country a hell of a lot of money. I'm sorry, it just is. Stop it. Well, we've got to rebuild the military. Yes, we do. $700 billion to rebuild the military. I'm all for it. Cut failed entitlement programs to make up for that money. We don't need to add more to the credit card. We don't need to raise taxes. What we need is our government to spend within its means. That's what we need. Well, we can't hit all of our priorities. Yeah. No, we can't satisfy every 535 members of that Congress. We can't pay off all of your political constituents with the federal treasury. Sorry, accept it. There's this little thing we got to do called prioritizing. And I've said this before and I'll say it again, but all of you in the sound of my voice ought to be sick and tired of having to purchase the ability to defend this nation by paying off these Democrats with failed entitlement programs so they can use that money to get reelected. I'm sick and tired of taxpayer money being used to the benefit of Democrats' reelection prospects. That's not what government money is supposed to be for. That's not what taxpayers' money is supposed to be for. I'm sorry. Stop it. But they don't listen. Oh, we're going to pass this $1.2 billion agreement. Or we don't want to shut down the government, do we? Oh, no, God forbid. God forbid we do that. $1.2 trillion. I might have been saying billion this whole time. It's trillion. It's $1.2 trillion. So that's happening. So we'll ask this Republican who comes on about this fixing politics business. We'll also have the replay of of our interview with Dan Patrick about the Austin bomber blowing himself up as police closed in. And we'll also get your commentary on the Maryland shooter yesterday. The libs didn't waste any time trying to get up there. Oh, we need more gun control. Get rid of the assault rifles. Wait a minute. He used a pistol. What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? Out of the 17,000 homicides last year, you know how many were caused by rifles? Do you know how many were caused by rifles? 386 out of the 17,000. Oh, that's the problem. Oh, let's attack the 300. That's the problem. Do you know how stupid you progressives sound? And I'm serious. One might think you have a different agenda rather than stopping the killing. Because, by the way, your proposals are not doing that. Your proposals are not stopping the killing. There's a story out of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. I don't know if you guys heard this. First off, a couple of kids have been arrested for bringing knives to school. After all of this, they're bringing knives. Where's Mr. Hogg? What's his first name? David, right? David Hogg. Where's Hogg? The 17-year-old calling for knife control. Where is he? And then the Broward County Sheriff's Office. Now, you guys know that the Broward County Sheriff's Office is run by a guy by the name of Scott Israel, who is an infected Democrat. A man who is not a law enforcement officer first. He's a Democrat first. He's a Democrat liberal operative, pictured with so many high-level Democrats. It's not even funny. He has his eyes on higher office. Anyway, here's a guy who bought into this promise program of President Obama, basically paying school districts and paying municipalities to keep kids who deserve to be behind bars, keeping them out of jail, to break the cycle, All well and good, but it leads to school shootings. So I'll leave it up to you. I know you progressives will take some time catching up, but again, another one of your programs that just papers over problems. Just makes it look good on the statute. Hey, look, we didn't arrest, the arrest of kids dropped by 60%. Well, was it because they were behaving? No, we didn't do our jobs. And we got money for it. So let me get this straight. It wasn't because they were behaving better. It was because you just stopped enforcing the law. Yep, that's pretty much it. But look at all the money we got. Great job, Scott Israel. Great job. This man, of course, is a Democrat. And when you put Democrats in charge of anything, folks, the Salcedo Show axiom goes like this. Liberals are funny until you put them in charge of something. When you do that, they're downright dangerous. One of Scott Israel's deputies has been placed on administrative leave, not fired, has been placed on leave for sleeping on the job. I kid you not. After all of this, sleeping on the job. Broward County Sheriff's Deputy Moises Carodi was spotted sleeping in his car on Tuesday while he was supposed to be patrolling the perimeter of the school's 1200 building. So he's been given school duty. This school has suffered a shooting. He's sleeping. This is the expertise that Democrats bring to law enforcement and government, ladies and gentlemen. Good grief. I'll be back in a minute. We'll talk about fixing politics. Coming up next, the Chris Salcedo Show on The Voice of Texas.
Hey, have you already?
First priority is going to be making sure that there are no other devices out there. But yes, when you have this level of law enforcement attention on an issue, they're going to be looking to all connections that they can to find out as much as they can about the individual. Based on the fact that he's going to have quite a social media profile, I'd be willing to wager they're going to have a lot of insights about who this is in the next few days. And as to how we got to this point, I would just note that yesterday when I was here on the couch, that we mentioned how the FedEx issue here, showing up at FedEx, may have been the change. And when you look at the timeline,
it seems to be. That's with the video.
When you look at the timeline, this has gone on for weeks. Everyone was saying the change in tactics, additional bombs, the things that he's done here show sophistication. But if he had stayed with the simpler version of his attack, putting these parcel bombs in front of people's homes, we might not be at this point, actually. It may have been going to FedEx that allowed law enforcement to bring some of those other tools to bear, like cell phone data, pulling things from the towers, making sure they could geolocate, or whatever it is that they did to finally hone in on them. It looks like FedEx was what changed the game here.
Former CIA operative Buck Sexton on with Fox and Friends this morning, ladies and gentlemen. Our good buddy over there has his own successful radio show in its own right, and with a rather sobering thought that it was this guy's attempt to mix things up to throw authorities off the trail that may have ultimately led him to being caught and then ultimately blowing himself up. What a scary thought. If this had remained in our neighborhoods, who knows how long it would have taken law enforcement to zero in on them. Let's talk about this and many other things with Bob Inglis. He's a former Republican congressman, the 4th District of South Carolina, executive director of Republican.en.org, a group committed to free enterprise action on climate change. And Mr. Inglis, welcome back to the Chris Salcedo Show.
Great to be with you, Chris. Thanks.
Sir, you're going to be in Texas, so I wanted to get your thoughts and your commentary on what we have endured here over these last 19 days.
Yeah, wow, what a terrifying thing. But you know, it's also great, though, Chris, isn't it? That it seems to me amazing police work. You know, to be able to track down and hone in on the person. You know, without the sophisticated tools you were just hearing about. How long would it have taken? So it's really impressive that our law enforcement folks are able to do such a great job of finding the guy and tracking him down.
Yeah, from the president down to the governor, to the lieutenant governor, and now to you, Congressman. The praise for law enforcement here in the state of Texas has been effusive under very, very trying situation. You are coming. If you're not coming, you're already here in the state of Texas to speak to the Society of Petroleum Engineers, an innovation and entrepreneurship symposium. What are you going to talk about?
Well, I'm here right now, and excited to be here on a beautiful, beautiful day in Houston. So this is about innovation in oil and gas, and I'm going to be talking about how companies like ExxonMobil and Statoil are really leading the way in saying, let's not attempt to regulate CO2, but rather let's just price CO2. Let's make it so that we're all accountable for the waste we create, just like when we go to the city dump, we've got to pay a tipping fee for the trash that we leave there because the city is going to ultimately have to build a new dump when this one fills up. Same thing about the air. We just need to price it and then let in the liberty of enlightened free enterprise, people will solve this problem by demanding innovation's free enterprise system. And I really do believe that oil and gas companies are a great example of that. They know how to innovate, and they will do so once we pay a tipping fee for the garbage we're putting in the air.
Yeah, carbon credits. Now, would these be? And the problem I see with the whole carbon credit system is that those who are wealthy can afford to pay for the carbon that is going into the air. By the way, this is the same stuff that you and I exhale out of our bodies as well. How far do we take this? Do we take it for industrial? Do we find farmers like cow farmers who have cows emitting methane into the atmosphere from the flatulence from the cows? I mean, how far do we take this?
Well, I think that the good news is that according to the Congressional Budget Office, if we were to untax income, say reduce payroll taxes that you pay whether you're working at McDonald's or Microsoft, on the first dollar of income, it's actually a 12.4% tax. It's a whopping tax. If you reduce that tax and you put a tax on carbon emissions instead through a carbon tax, the bottom 70 percentile in income groups do better than they are under the current system. And so the reason is that it's actually the people at the top end of the scale that do worse in that kind of tax swap. Reason they've got big houses and heated pools and fly around in corporate jets. At republicen.org, we say bless them. We're not trying to stop people from having a big house or a heated pool. That's great if you want to do it. It's just pay for what you take in the salad bar of life. And if you're putting trash in the air, well, just pay the tipping fee.
So one thing, Congressman, you are conceding that or you believe that CO2 is trash, that the very things that we breathe out of our body that plants need to live, CO2 is actually trash.
Right. Sort of like we eat, we go, we flush, it ends up in the sewer system.
Right.
It's inevitable. It's something we've got to do. If you don't, you're dying. And so, but we deal with it. And the way we deal with it is you got to pay for the water you use, and that gets the city the ability to have a sewer treatment plant. So the same thing we need with waste of carbon dioxide out of my car's tailpipe or out of the electricity that I'm using.
All right, former Congressman Bob Inglis is our guest right now, folks. He was representative from the 4th District of South Carolina, and as you can hear, he is with republicen.org, a group of folks who believe that climate change is caused by man and by our CO2 emissions. Let me ask you about the prospect of this angle which I have been imploring energy companies to convert to bridge fuels, which, by the way, we are abundant here in the great state of Texas. Natural gas. This is clean burning. This is it doesn't put all the other materials into the air that maybe coal does, the other impurities that are not CO2 that I think we can do without in our air, and then make an effort to convert our cars, to convert our energy consumption, our power plants into natural gas burning plants, to bridge that gap between the traditional fossil fuels with a bridge fuel that gets us into the fuels of the future. What's wrong with that approach?
Nothing. That's a great idea. And that's thankfully what's happening because of a very creative oil and gas industry. George Mitchell perfected fracking here in Texas, increased supply, brought down price. And as a result, for example, in my home state of South Carolina, 6 coal-fired plants making electricity from coal converted or are in the process of converting to natural gas. Now, that makes them no longer customers of West Virginia and Pennsylvania and Montana, but rather customers of Texas. Now, that's bad for coal, but it's great for the people of South Carolina. We're breathing better. We have less small particulates in the air. We get 50% less CO2. And so it really proves the point we're making at republicen.org is that human ingenuity can solve this problem, and free enterprise can solve it if you just price things in, and the price mechanism works. And fracking proves that.
Yep. Last Thursday, you announced, along with other folks in this Reformers Caucus, a mechanism to fix politics. And look, I don't care which side of the aisle you're on, Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative. That our politics doesn't work anymore. I mean, in particular with, I believe, the election of Barack Obama and how divisive he was for this country. His MO was dividing this country. And now you've got Donald Trump and the entire Democrat side of the aisle committed to keeping that division going. I don't think we can get anything done. And I'm going to bring up an example of this, but give us the overall mission for the Reformers Caucus to fix politics. How are you going to do this?
Well, mostly I think it's us rising to full citizenship. My sense is that we've been driven by fear, and we got to rise to full citizenship and say to politicians, stop scaring us. Stop telling us about the boogeyman under the bed. We know there's no boogeyman under there. What's real is that we've got an enormous deficit and a huge debt, and so let's have an adult conversation about how to deal with that. Let's look at ways to fix challenges like climate change. We can do that. We don't scare us away by calling the other people names or telling us that they're Shia and we're Sunni. Let's go behead them. But rather, let's say, listen, we're all in this together. We're Americans, and we're the people who solve problems. So let's stop running in fear and start looking for solutions. It's really up to us, politicians, and not to the politicians. You know, it's up to people to say to the politicians, give us that adult conversation. Don't give us that fear thing anymore.
Well, what do you do when you've got both sides of the political aisle? And there's one thing they can all agree on, Congressman. Both sides of the political aisle can agree to be irresponsible children and spend more money than they are given by the American taxpayer. The latest Republican omnibus is an example of this, where, yes, I concede that our American military is in much need of fixing because of 8 years of neglect under the previous administration. I concede that. But the very idea that we have to purchase that with doubling down or tripling down on failed entitlement programs that are not producing the outcomes we were promised, they all get behind their closed doors and they shake hands to say, oh, let's fleece the American taxpayer. That's what they can agree on, is spending more money. And this is a problem I see in politics, that there is no common sense agreement on what unifies us, and defending the country has to be one of those things that does. But we have one side of the political aisle who says, you know what, we don't need to defend the country. What do we need to defend the country for? This is what tires a conservative like me.
Yeah. Well, I think here's the thing. I understand that why that would be tiresome. It's also true, though, that a lot of us want to rail about the deficit, but then we say, don't cut my dad, who's 95 years old. Don't cut my dad's Social Security or his Medicare. And don't cut my Down syndrome niece's Medicaid money, right? And so what Congress hears from me is, oh, got it. You want me to talk and complain but do nothing. Got it. We can do that in Washington. We're really good at that. And so That's where we citizens need to say, okay, we do have a challenge with Medicare. We do have a challenge with Social Security. Mitt Romney was right. It's a Ponzi scheme. I'm not running for president, so I can say it. And and I'm not in Florida. But that's the adult conversation. And then you can say, okay, now, and we're also good-hearted people who want to help one another. And we do want to help my 95-year-old dad. And we are going to figure out a way to make this work. But let's figure out a way to make it work. Because the thing right now is if you just keep on going on autopilot, we're headed for a cliff.
Oh, no, you're absolutely right. And you know what? What they call that is baseline budgeting. And baseline budgeting is the first thing that needs to go away. We need to have zero-based budgeting. Everybody starts out at zero every fiscal year. Of course, that would necessitate, Congressman, as you know, some members of Congress doing work for a living up there, which as this omnibus, I believe, proves, nobody's working. Everybody's just saying, let's all get together and agree to do what we all love to do, spend other people's money and let the consequences be damned. Bob Inglis, everybody, former Republican Congressman, 4th District of South Carolina. The organization is republican.org. And make sure you check them out if you want to have a differing perspective than your liberty-loving Latinos' perspective on climate change. Sir, I appreciate you being here on the Chris Salcedo Show.
Great to be with you, Chris. Thanks so much.
All right, sir. More to come on the Chris Salcedo Show on the Voice of Texas. Be right back. And that's going to do it here for the Chris Salcedo Show Worldwide on the Vida Television Network. I want to remind everyone that I think I'm one of the few individuals on television who actually allows you to directly interact with me unfiltered, live. All you got to do is call AM 700 KSEV 281-558-5738, 281-558-KSEV from the hours of 7:30 a.m. Eastern until 10 o'clock Eastern and let your voice be heard. Maybe you don't think we covered something fairly, or maybe you don't think we've covered something enough. It's your chance to weigh in. You can also do so via social media. Go to chrissalcedo.com. All of our contact information is there. Or you can do it live in real time during those same hours at Chris Salcedo TX. Even off hours, we respond to Twitter, and it's a good chance if you make a compelling argument, it'll be featured on the show if I'm not on the air at the time the following day. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Chris Salcedo Show Worldwide here on the Vida Television Network. We'll see you next time.